All right, welcome to the Ravit Show. It is such a pleasure to have a special guest today. It's none other than Shayde Christian, CDAO at Cloudera. Christian, okay, I should call you Shayde. Sorry. So,
Happens all
uh,
the time.
you bet. So, Shayde, I know we've spoken a lot off air, and I know you have such interesting insights around CDAO roles, CDO roles, and how they are maturing. What are the roles and responsibilities? But not only just that, you yourself are in the CDAO role at Cloudera, and I'm pretty excited to discuss various topics today with you about the roles and responsibilities, but also about, since we are just around the corner, 2024 is just here. I would also love to know a little about if you have any predictions around it, but not only just that, also would love to learn a little about the business leadership, how it operates. We can always get into the Gen AI world and learn more about how that's operating. So yeah, a lot of things that we can chat about. And for those who are attending us today, feel free to ask questions to Shayde. What you just need to do is tag Shayde Christian on LinkedIn, or if you're joining from YouTube, you can always put in the questions. I'll get those to Shayde. And ask any questions that you have for Shayde out there. Shayde, just to start with, why not introduce yourself to our audience and just let them know what do you do at Cloudera as well.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. First, I want to thank you. I was grateful to receive your invitation to come on, and so I'm
Thank you.
grateful to be here, and thank you for asking me. Yes, I am the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Cloudera. Cloudera is a top 10 global data company. And so I have an internal and external function. My internal function is owning data and analytics for the entire organization. That's business intelligence, data science, and AI. It's data management, DevOps, data architecture. And my team also works on our tool set. So we create data platforms and services for engineering, data storage, et cetera. And so we utilize our tools internally. Therefore, I have an evangelistic role where I do a little bit of what you do and hit the tour and go to speak at Gartner analytics conferences, do a lot of articles and blogs to kind of get the word out about how best to use our platforms and services.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thanks for all the information shared. I know I've seen like you've been talking a lot around the CDO role, how it is, and comparing it with the CEO role as well. I'm kind of curious to learn more about what do you think about the CDAO role. How is it trending in what's the business leadership side around that? Do you have something that you would like to share with our audience, and how do you see the CDO's role succeed more in the near future?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been reading, McKinsey and Gardner talking about, how the leadership is trending towards business leadership and not tech leadership. I really identify that with that. Before I was in this role, I was in a similar role in a large healthcare company, but I was a principal consultant for multiple years. And so this business orientation, this idea of really speaking business terms and being a business leader, even though I run a tech function, speaks a lot to me. And I think there's sort of different thought patterns. I don't think it's better to be a business leader versus a tech leaning leader, business leaning leader. I don't say one's better than the other, but I
Yeah.
do notice a lot of different thought patterns in how tech leaning folks go about it versus business leaning folks.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And thanks for that, Shade. I know you've been out there sharing a lot of content around it. You speak at a lot of conferences as well, and at a lot of podcasts about it. So thanks for sharing those. Also, just on that topic itself, can you tell us about the importance and challenges of maintaining engagement with senior executives as well? Since we are talking about the business leadership side, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's critical, but I think it's more critical because you need to be business leading, and that's the way that the role is trending. I think there's certain thought patterns that business leaders have. First is more of a depth of field, of focus, of where your focus is. When I was a departmental leader, I still lead a department, but when I was focused more as a director on the department, I had the opportunity to focus just on departmental objectives, what we were getting out the door. Those are our outputs, not our outcomes. But I think business leaning leaders need to be thinking in terms of the corporate objectives. You're thinking beyond your department and kind of what you're doing for the business and the corporation in and of itself. And so that depth of field expansion is a really, really important thing. I think that business leaning leaders also define success differently. So if you're focused on the department, you're focused on what analytics you've delivered, the volume of data that might be available, the stability of your platform, et cetera. Those are success metrics and KPIs, metrics that you use internally. But I think if you're a business leaning leader, you start to use the corporate nomenclature such as EBITDA, gross operating margin, churn, renewals. You start to look at success not in terms of what you put out there for your internal customers, but you look at the success of the company overall. So it's great that we did some churn analytics recently and some new logo analytics for our chief revenue officer. And so we can claim victory on having put that out the door. But we actually had to wait 2 to 3 quarters to really see the success of that and the percentage of new logo business bookings that we landed. And so a business leader tends to say, wow, look what we did. We had a goal for the company to increase new logos, and we got an 18% growth quarter over quarter. And it can be attributed to many things, but is directly correlated to that advanced analytics, the prescriptive analytics that we provided the CRO to say, these are the new logos in these industries in these regions that you really want to pursue.
Okay. These are fantastic insights in terms of not only just the, what language do you need to speak most often, but also how do you define success? That kind of also brings me to another question is, where do you spend most of your time in terms of, the tech? When we talk about tech or when we talk about business, how do you balance that being a leader who also knows a lot about tech, but now, you're getting more into the business aspects and talking that type of language as well?
Yeah, and I think that ties into the question you asked that I didn't answer about executive engagement. I think that I really envy some of your guests. They talk deep about the tech, and it's clear that they can spend a lot of time with the tech, and I'm envious of that. I don't get to do that. I spend a lot of my time with the C-suite, with executives, with middle managers, even VPs. But for several reasons, but, I mentioned what success means, how you define it, the business leaning nomenclature that you use. How do you know what you're going to do for the bottom line of the company, the top line of the company for customer experience, if you're not integrating with the people who are on the forefront in the company of achieving those objectives, right? How do you know? So I spent a lot of time with execs instead of the tech. And there's another reason I really have to do that as well, Ravit. It's simply that there's an existential threat if you don't. There's always a lot of leadership changes. Our company has a lot of leadership changes this year. And so there's always analysis. What have you done? You're a shared service organization, right? How valuable have you been to the company? And so if you're not meeting with your senior executives and letting them know what you've done tangibly in quantifiable metrics, here's what we did in terms of new logo analytics quarter over quarter.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You're telling them the story of your department. You're telling them the value so that they understand and never question it. And you're also asking those questions. Where are we next quarter? Are we still on new logo analytics? No, we really need to look at churn. We need to look at renewal. We need some prescriptive analytics that are as good as the new logo analytics that you provided. So no, I don't spend a lot of time in the tech. I decision about tech, but I spend more time speaking with the stakeholders in the organization.
Okay, I get it. Thank you for sharing that, Shade. Makes a lot of sense. That also brings me to another important question. Since we are on this topic, so how important do you consider the art of storytelling? Because I'm pretty sure when you are working with the business leaders, they obviously want everything, in a good presented in a good way, where they can learn everything precisely and very clear and in a concise way. How do you do that, and how important do you consider art of storytelling?
It's one of the reasons why you're a great host, because I can tell you research and you know the people that you're interviewing, and you know that I love storytelling and it's important to me. I'm not sure if you know or not that I was formerly a screenwriter. And
Oh,
so
wow.
so I have some formal training. Not quite as successful in that career as I am in this one, but I loved it and I love storytelling. In fact, the two, CDO storytelling and screenwriting, are similar in many respects. And I think that storytelling's so important. In fact, when I was a consultant, I thought people were hiring me because, well, I had all this skill in designing and building data, enterprise data
Mm-hmm.
organizations, or turning them around, right? Or I could implement a lot of technology. And I thought they were really hiring me because of my expertise. I was with a client in a board meeting where the story we had to tell was a huge error was made, a big falling on your sword moment. And at the same time, we were asking for more money for my client from the board. So it was a really tough story, but it was a successful story, right? And we got
Great.
what we wanted out of the meeting. And when I left the meeting with the CIO and CDO who I was serving, and just the looks on their faces and what they were saying, I realized that people had been hiring me to tell stories when it was a
True.
really tough situation, right? Ravit, you've got to frame that story. You've got to tell it correctly. So I think this is something that's been important in my career. I think that screenwriting and CDO art of storytelling are similar in many respects. I think there's always a setting,
Yep.
in Crouching Tiger, you're in the Gobi Desert in 1890 or whenever it is. Our setting is our corporate culture and what our
Right.
corporation is here to achieve. I think that fictional stories have a theme. It's why the story is being told, what you're really trying to affect and accomplish. And for that, for a CDAO, that is the charter of the data and analytics unit. It's why we
Yeah.
exist. It's what we're doing here. The plot is obviously the deliverables we have, but the resolution of a story that a CDO tells is, like I mentioned before, when you meet with execs, it's how valuable you are. It's in terms of how
Yeah.
you improved EBITDA, right? It's how you improve the customer
Exactly.
experience. So I think they're the same. But thanks for the question, because I love storytelling.
Oh yeah, definitely. And good. Obviously, storytelling is again a big art that not everyone has, but it also goes back to, obviously you writing a script and what you used to do. So it takes a lot, and I've seen so many data storytellers out there, and it's always, it's just always that special quality that they have when they kind of go out and present, and it is so easy for everyone, even if you are a technical or a non-technical person, but it becomes so easy for you to understand. So it's an interesting job that you're doing, Shade. Yeah.
Right, and you jogged a thought.
Yeah.
Yes, it's easy in some respects, it's hard in other respects. Some people have natural talent, some people don't. The thing I give advice about when storytelling, though, is there's this really effective technique called setups and payoffs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
great films will have these great moments where things turn and it's a fantastic moment, but you then realize you've been set up the entire time for that event. Like
Yeah.
Unforgiven is one of my favorite movies, and you
Oh,
hear Clint Eastwood. You like that, Robert?
I have. Yes, yes, one of the most interesting movies I've watched. So yeah.
Well, the whole movie, David Webb Peoples is telling you this guy is vicious. He is intemperate. And you're like, this guy is falling off his horse and he's like 85 years old. And there's no way this guy's vicious. And then you get to the climax and he takes a drink and you learn that he is exactly what David Webb Peoples has told you all about. And I love using that technique as a leader because I'm setting up executives for I've asked what you've wanted. Okay, here's what we're going to be delivering. Here's the expectation around what we're going to do for you. Then you deliver, then you measure the outcomes. And in your next story, when you're learning what your initiatives will be later, you're bragging about what you've done in terms of the payoff. Here are the outcomes you received. Yes, we're so thankful to have delivered this analytics package to you because we know it meant something to the bottom line of your organization.
Yeah, no, I love it. And again, just shifting back a little bit towards what you mentioned in the start itself, like towards the trend of business leading leaders. How does one lean that way? Like, what are your suggestions, advices to business leaders out there?
I like that. I think maybe there's two things. First, if you run data and analytics, especially, you have the company store around what's happening to the company. It's right there. Your folks produce it. So my first advice would be to read it. If you look at business leaning leaders, they understand what marketing, sales, and product are actually trying to accomplish. And the dashboards, the enterprise standard dashboards that we deliver show that. And learn the vernacular. I think the second thing I would advise, which is very important to us, is align everything you do to corporate objectives. We literally look at the corporate objectives and have long strategy sessions each quarter about how we're going to help accomplish those specific numbers. And so when you align to corporate objectives and you see the big picture that we want to reduce churn by 7%, right? What analytics are we going to be providing? And that makes you aligned to the business, speaking the business language, and being more integrated as a business leader.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing that. It all makes sense in terms of, like I mentioned, obviously to our audience as well, that I'm going to ask a little about 2024 as well. And since Shayde, you talk to a lot of business leaders, I've heard, like, in the last, say, 9 months, I've spoken to a lot of data leaders out there who are managing a lot of data teams, and they're like, business just wants us to do something in the Gen AI world, something. And they get requests, or in every quarterly meeting they've been asked, like, not that in 9 months they have had like only 2 quarters, but still they've been asked by the business leaders about where are we standing in terms of the Gen AI, what's the progress. And there have been very few companies who have actually had some progress around it, and those enterprise companies definitely it takes a while for them to even say that, okay, this Gen AI is actually helping us to get to the next level. So everything is in the trial mode right now, and that's what is happening in the Gen AI world. But even the data world, I'm pretty sure you talk to a lot of leaders, you understand a lot around not only just Gen AI but data, machine learning. So what are your predictions for 2024? Where do you see things moving? And would you like to share anything?
Yeah, sure. A Gartner study just came out that's those polled, 45% of the companies were in POC mode, 10% had productionalized, 10%, right? So even this year has been an exploration, but companies are not yet getting business value, generally speaking, from Gen AI. When you look at a McKinsey study about what percentage of Gen AI is being applied to which departments, sales, marketing, and product each had between about 10 and 14%. And almost across the board, the use cases were about text generation or text summation, right? So the variability of use cases isn't high. The productionalization is not high. So that leads me to 2024. Are companies going to invest more to try to get to production? Are they going to phase it out and say, we tried it, it didn't work, it's too hard? I think that I can tell you what I wish will happen in 2024. I think that Gen AI is fantastic and fascinating, especially in that it creates another record. Predictive analytics says, should I buy this? Should I not buy this? Yes or no? Is this a cat or is this not a cat? But Gen AI says, let me draw you a cat, or let me suggest what you should buy, right? So it's beautiful in that sense. However, I think machine learning is more applicable to drive business value for most corporate entities, predicting things of the future that we can act on more than text summation and text generation. So I wish that this huge focus on Gen AI gets a spotlight shine over here on machine learning, and that many of the companies trialing Gen AI also embrace machine learning, which might be more helpful to their business goals in the long term.
I love it. And thanks for sharing this. It is very important, where, like you said, what, according to those stats, where the production is actually just 10%, if Gartner's report says so, or McKinsey's report says so, I feel we are definitely in the interesting space, and things could move around very quickly as well. In 2024 there could be a lot of development that can happen. At least we can wish for that. And yes, you're right, machine learning kind of plays a very important role, and it can actually be a game changer if we focus more on it and get in that direction. So thanks for sharing that, Shayde.
Yeah, and I don't need an ML algorithm to also predict that I will get both fatter and more wrinkly in 2024. This is a trend I've been noticing, and I think it will continue.
Yeah, can't wait. Definitely, Shayde. And Shayde, one quick question. I know we're towards the end, and this was such an interesting conversation. Always love to chat with you, even off air. We've chatted so much, and you are one of the most interesting personalities. I've always told you that in the data science AI space as well. But if folks want to reach out to you, learn more about the things that you're doing, how does the CDO role looks like, or anything around the business leadership as well, where can they reach out to you?
I think LinkedIn is the best place. Shayde, Shayde. I'm probably the only one there. So it's easy to get right, and connect with me or follow, because most of what I publish or events that I'm speaking are posted by myself and my company. So I think that's a best way to stay in touch with me. I know how to stay in touch with you, and I'm actually harboring a secret wish that I'm going to be the first person you actually grant an interview and turn the tables, and so that people can know more about Ravit.
No, for sure. We'll do that. And we'll do that in person. We'll make it more interesting.
Cool.
Where we can, I'm pretty sure you have a packed schedule for 2024 in terms of the travels and all the stuff that you'll be doing. And we'll find a common conference where we both are attending, and we'll do this for sure. For the audience and for whatever I can share. I don't know if I'll be as good as you as a guest, Shayde, but I'll try.
Oh, you don't. When you get the questions, you're gonna be great. And I really support you. I love what you do. You're prolific. I can't believe you got so many interviews were being posted from the AWS thing. So I wish you well, my friend, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Shayde, for once again visiting the Ravit Show. It was such a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for watching us today. You can reach out to Shayde directly on LinkedIn. You can follow him. He is out there sharing all the content that he's been posting. You can learn around the CDAO roles, the tech leader roles. He shares a lot of stuff there. I'll also share a link of his profile when I put this post out, so y'all can follow him there. Thank you once again, Shayde. It was such a pleasure to host you.